and I'm going to read you a little bit of that today. So this is Mehlman's Revenge. Mehlman sneered. Nothing new for him. What else could you do in a world full of jerks? And there were none bigger than the family next door. Always laughing like mental patients. Taking the garbage out in the morning of pickup when he was trying to sleep instead of the night before like decent human beings. Having barbecues in the backyard till as late as 9 o'clock or on the weekends 10 o'clock. Horrible people. And he was determined to get rid of them. But he couldn't do it himself. That frustrated the hell out of Mehlman. He tried wedging nails against the tires of their cars, and they'd gotten a few flats, but nothing really damaging. Then one of the useless sons caught him red-handed. The father didn't even kick his ass so Mehlman could sue him, damn him. Instead, he lodged a legal complaint with the town, not asking for a penny, but making an official record so if Mehlman did anything else to them, both actions would demonstrate a pattern of abuse. And he'd have to pay loads, maybe even do time. Bastard even agreed not to say a word to Mehlman's wife, Marge. Probably loved the humiliation and how Mehlman was forced to be nice. He couldn't let that mortification stand. So he sneered and bided his time, waiting for the perfect idea. Months passed. Years. He didn't think of anything that couldn't come back and bite him in the ass. But then his son, actually Marge's son, a short, fat science nerd, finally proved useful. He and Marge had tried diligently for years to have their own kids, but it never happened. But seeing those punks next door going to school every day, or riding around town on bicycles with their pack of friends, or wandering off to college and then coming back home, all the while their parents driving the same crappy cars. That showed Mehlman how lucky he was. Their struggle made him laugh every time he climbed into his muscle car, glad he was never saddled with the same burdens. Sometimes life just works out. Now, Marge's dweeb, RJ, was some sort of plant scientist, a progressive environmental bioengineer, he called himself, telling Mehlman one time after a few drinks that he spent his life developing plant hybrids or something for business and possible military application. Like the Army needed assault gardenias. Honestly, RJ he probably explained it better, but who could bother to listen? Until he mentioned his latest project. Turned out the crafty little drip was developing some kind of aggressive moss. Over Easter dinner, he bored the hell out of everybody talking about multiple diverse applications, claiming the moss would be able to replicate rapidly and eat through weeds, fungus, or any harmful, naturally occurring growth. For example, he droned on, that mold that sometimes further damages property after these horrendous climate change-induced storms we've been having. So yeah, he was a liberal idiot. But his politics didn't make any difference. Not once it dawned on Mehlman that those jerks next door, they loved their lawn. One of their no-good grown-ass kids worked on it all the time, doing everything that Mehlman paid some company a pile of cash to do, just so Marge wouldn't complain. If that lawn was something they enjoyed, he wanted to destroy it. Mehlman figured that all he needed to do was somehow get a little bit of RJ's miracle growth. How the hell was he going to do that? The geek had to keep the project at some lab, right? Mehlman knew he couldn't just drop in for a visit. especially since he didn't know where Tubby worked. It scorched his shorts to think that this was the end of his revenge dreams. Turned out his plans were only ruined for a couple of annoying months. Sometimes life just works out. Marge had offered to cook Thanksgiving dinner, but the little science nerd had conned some desperate gold digger into marrying him. She popped out a little brat that was something like, 6 months old, and the disgustingly delighted new parents wanted to stay home for the baby's first turkey fest. So he and Marge had to go to them. Still didn't seem like any kind of big break for Mehlman until they got there and, over drinks, Plant Man offered to show Mehlman his home lab. I get to monitor and work on my projects right here, RJ said with pride. Admin would never have even considered it before COVID. This guy was a bigger bore than Mehlman thought, but it was worth a shot. Well, what do you got back there? The brainiac rattled off all sorts of gibberish until he said, moss. Yeah, let's go see your stuff, Mehlman said. And he suffered through every bit of botanical bull just to get near RJ's attack growth. So how does this stuff work? It feeds on what it is introduced to, RJ explained, theoretically at least. How'd you get it to survive from the lab to home? This is the sturdiest life form I have ever worked with. These sample containers performed perfectly. Well, for the moss they did. My cannabis buds all died in transit. Bummer, Mehlman said, studying the green mess. But how would this stuff work in the field, theoretically? The working concept is just to spread a little bit on whatever aggressive growth you want to get rid of, and the moss eats and grows. Simple as that. The catch, however, is you have to make sure it can be restricted to its purpose. You don't want it wiping out an entire forest just to get rid of some poison oak. Fascinating. But Mehlman wanted exactly that. He dreamed of RJ's little beastie eating the neighbor's lawn, trees, house. Maybe you could get some of it on the dog to shut that thing up too. All you had to do now was distract the schmuck. Mehlman took what happened next as a sign from God, or whoever the hell ran this mess. RJ's ugly baby started crying. He apologized, said he'd be right back, and ran off. Sometimes life just... Mehlman grabbed one of RJ's little travel things, removed the top, spooned in a little bit of the miracle moss into the container, screwed the cover on tight, and slid it into his pocket. Happy Thanksgiving to me, Mehlman thought, moving to rejoin the festivities, very pleased with himself. And if you'd like to know whether Mehlman succeeds, buy trees. That's right. Edited by Dina. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. That sounded really, not a great story, but oh yeah, it was. Anyway.